Anyone ever described your ADHD or autistic child as lazy, stubborn, or just plain difficult? Maybe you've even felt that on your hardest days. But what if I told you the problem isn't your child's character, but rather their dopamine? Dopamine is that chemical that helps us to learn, stay motivated, understand interoception, so what our body is saying to us, follow through, focus, the whole 9 yards. It really affects so much. Welcome to Glow Within. My name is Katie Connolly. I'm a clinical counselor, craniosacral and somatic therapist, founder of a registered children's yoga school, and a mom to two. And my work is here to empower neurodiverse families. So we've grown up in a society that has seen ADHD and autistic children as lazy, defiant, unmotivated, you name it, right? If you're a parent, you're also under pressure, right? So when our children refuse to do maybe their homework, or they melt down over a small request, or they seem totally checked out, it's natural to feel frustrated, right? We have a lot on our plate. And sometimes we even blame ourselves. What did we do wrong? Why is this happening? You've probably also been told by maybe school, teachers, family members that you're either too lenient or you're inconsistent, or maybe that you're even too strict. And that if you and your child tried harder, things would be different. But we know that trying harder is not actually going to make a difference when it's a result of brain chemistry. And if you are autistic or ADHD, you probably have also been through this experience yourself, so there's deeper patterns there. So it's a lot to carry, right? There's that guilt, sadness, anger. There's lots to carry. You're not wrong. You're not doing anything wrong. Your child is not broken. This is just the result of working with the wrong map. And so once we understand what we're working with and the root cause, which is what I like to always go back to, what is the root cause, getting to that intention, then we can really help to support our children and ourselves. So honestly, my hubby and I are both ADHD with completely different presentations. There's lots in my family. And I didn't actually understand what the dopamine effect was until he shared some studies with me. I always thought that he was maybe just not focused, or like what was going on. And so I realized, because of our different presentations, I had actually learned how to cope with mine since I was a child. I would always have checklists, so I'd always be checking things off, and that was my dopamine hit, along with exercise and other things, to keep me going. So when people say an ADHD or an autistic child is lazy, what they don't understand is the effect of dopamine and how that works as our brain's motivation chemical. It's what helps us to shift gears, get started on tasks, and feel the reward when we finish. So if you enjoy coffee or chocolate, I love both, then you'll understand, when you get that hit, it helps you move forward. But if you don't have that, you don't have that, right? We need to find other ways. So without enough dopamine, everyday tasks can feel like trying to start a car with no gas. Imagine that. No amount of yelling, drive faster, is going to get that car moving, right? It's not stubbornness, it's just chemistry, really. And I also find this interesting because when we look at other conditions, maybe like asthma, we wouldn't call them lazy because they can't run fast, right? We understand the whole physiological response. Same with someone who has diabetes. If their blood sugar drops, we're not going to say, oh, like they're being difficult, right? We understand, again, there's that chemistry behind it. But when we look at the effects of dopamine in ADHD and autistic children, society still blames the child or the individual and their character. And when we go after somebody's character, it creates shame, right? So there can be deep layers of shame here. And I think that's really important to air out and bring into the open, because if we don't, we continue to hold these patterns deep within our body and even perpetuate them. So dopamine affects so much of our life. It affects our ability to focus, to learn, motivation, regulation or self-interoceptive awareness, to balance moods, decision-making, planning, the executive functioning, balance, motor control, and coordination, right? So that's quite a bit. So when our child isn't motivated by maybe being social or achieving a goal, that's okay. We can honor this and help them to learn some tools to empower them. So things like normalizing the need to take breaks, right? And to move our body to get that dopamine hit, or even to rest, can be very, very powerful. Going back to understanding maybe their special interests or what does motivate them. And I did do a video on this, that intrinsic motivation, what makes them feel innately good. Hone in on that, right? Building in supports like movement, activity, rest, things that are novel, maybe making things a game or a race can really help to build in that energy and that dopamine to get us going. Breaking things down into smaller steps so that rather than facing this huge mountain of a task, we can see those little steps and check them off as we go. I swear this is what keeps me going. Obviously, there's a few other things. On that note, breaking things down into simple visuals can be very helpful, right? So maybe it's even cleaning a room, for example. I know that is just overwhelming for most people. So if we think about cleaning a room, let's start with the little cars, right? Let's see how many little cars we can grab and put in a basket and see how fast we can do it. Okay, now let's get the doll clothes, right? So it's gamifying it, if you will. Other things that are really helpful are natural sunlight. So getting enough daylight and even walking in the moon or getting a bit of that moonlight to help nurture and reset our circadian rhythm, which helps us get deep, restful sleep. Eating nourishing foods. So our gut was created from the same tissue as our brain in utero. Cool, right? Our gut helps with dopamine and serotonin production. So serotonin being the happy hormone. And in fact, more serotonin is produced in our gut than in our brain. So eating foods that are nourishing, and you might like to work with a naturopath for this, because everybody's gut is a little bit different, and our biome needs are a bit different, right? So eating things that are easy to digest and not going to upset the system. And then this gives us the energy to keep going. Celebrating effort. So not just the result, celebrating effort. I remember this is something that my husband and I chatted about, I think even before having children. It was something that we were very conscious of, that it was so important to connect with the efforts being put in rather than just the result. Because if it's just the result, there becomes a sense of failure if we feel like we haven't achieved that result. Whereas putting in effort, then we go places. We're not always going to get results, and that's okay, but we keep trying. So celebrating effort and those little wins really helps to boost dopamine. And most importantly, shifting from my child is being difficult to what does my child need? Right? So this is what I call hearing from the heart, or really getting to the heart of the matter. And when we approach challenges or situations in this way, Instead of coming up against these power struggles, we're working with our child's nature. We're working to build that safety and connection, and that's what really carries us the distance. So if you're ready to parent with this understanding and to finally drop the guilt, I'd love to connect with you. Comment Nourish, and don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to learn more with me. And I have some interesting resources below.